An empire growing so fast, even though you don't know its limits, where one wrong move could destroy your father's legacy and your children's future. This is Sultan Murad, one in his middle years, not learning, not dreaming, but forging an unbreakable empire. By the time Murad reached the heart of his reign, the Ottoman state was no longer a fragile frontier tribe. It had become a growing force pressing deep into Europe. Cities were falling, borders were expanding, enemies were multiplying. But Murad understood something most rulers never do. Expansion creates more problems than it solves. Every new city meant new people, new religions, new customs, new tensions. And every conquered land brought new enemies who would never forget what was taken from them. This was the phase of Murad's life when war stopped feeling heroic. It became mechanical, strategic, necessary. He no longer fought to prove himself. He fought to maintain control. And that is a far heavier burden. Murad began spending less time celebrating victories and more time planning systems. He believed that a ruler who only conquers is weak, but a ruler who organizes is eternal. This is when he began reshaping the empire from the inside. Not with swords, but with structure. He strengthened the legal system. He standardized taxes. He reorganized land ownership. He replaced local tribal influence with direct state authority. To many, this felt like oppression. To Murad, it was survival. Empires collapsed not from invasion, but from chaos. And chaos was everywhere. Christian kingdoms in the Balkans were forming alliances. Serbian lords, Bulgarian kings, Bosnian leaders, and many who once fought each other were now united by one fear: the Ottomans. Murad was no longer facing isolated enemies. He was facing coalitions. This forced him to rethink warfare itself. Instead of relying on feudal levies and temporary forces, Murad strengthened his professional army. The Janissaries were no longer an experiment. They were now the spine of the state. They trained constantly. They followed strict discipline. They obeyed orders without question. Their loyalty was not emotional, it was engineered. And that is what made them terrifying. In Murad's middle years, battles became less about brute force and more about precision. His armies moved like machines. They marched in formation. They used signals, planning, and coordination that felt unnatural to medieval armies. While enemy forces argued among themselves, the Ottomans moved as one body. And slowly, Europe realized something had changed. Murad was not just conquering territory. He was exporting a new kind of power. But while the world saw strength, Murad felt pressure. The more he built, the more fragile everything felt. Inside his palace, Murad was not just a sultan, he was a father, a husband, a man haunted by decisions no one else had to make. He knew every war created orphans, every law created resentment, every reform created enemies. And Murad had many enemies. Some were kings, others were his own people. Turkish nobles resented his centralization. They felt stripped of power. Religious scholars debated his policies. Tribal leaders whispered rebellion. Murad responded not with speeches, but with action. He crushed revolts swiftly, quietly, completely. History remembers him as firm, but firmness has a cost. And that cost was loneliness. Murad trusted fewer people each year. He became more reserved, more distant. His world became a map, not a home. His friendships became alliances. His conversations became negotiations. This is what middle age looked like for a medieval sultan. Not comfort, control. One of the most defining moments of Murad's middle reign came during his campaigns in the Balkans. Village by village, city by city, resistance weakened. Some rulers submitted. Others fought and vanished from history. Murad offered two paths: submission or destruction. Many chose submission. They paid taxes. They sent soldiers. They kept their religions, but lost their independence. Murad was not interested in forced conversion. He was interested in obedience. To him, diversity was not a weakness. Disloyalty was. Yet despite his discipline, Murad was not immune to doubt. Chroniclers describe him as deeply religious. He prayed often. He believed he was chosen for a divine purpose. But faith can bring comfort or fear. If God gives you power, then God can also take it away, and Murad feared losing everything. He began to think about legacy, not monuments, not statues, but systems. This is why he invested so heavily in institutions, military academies, administrative offices, legal codes. He wanted the empire to outlive him. He did not want to be remembered as a conqueror. He wanted to be remembered as a builder. But builders are rarely loved. They obey. As Murad's empire grew, so did its shadow. Cities across Europe began fortifying. Diplomats traveled constantly. Spies moved through marketplaces. Murad's name was whispered in courts from Venice to Hungary. Some called him a tyrant. Some called him a genius. Murad himself called it duty. The turning point of his middle age came when he realized that he could not stop expanding, even if he wanted to. His empire had momentum. His army needed purpose. His enemies were preparing. Peace would make him weak. Weakness would kill him. So he marched. And every march brought him closer to destiny. The Battle of Kosovo was not just a war. It was a collision of eras. On one side, medieval coalitions built on loyalty, honor, and pride. On the other, Murad's machine disciplined, structured, relentless. As armies gathered, Murad knew this battle would define him, not because of victory, but because of meaning. If he lost, everything he built would collapse. If he won, the Ottomans would become unstoppable. But fate had its own plan. The battlefield was chaotic. Thousands died. Flags fell. Screams filled the air. And somewhere in that storm, Murad walked among his troops, praying. Then came the moment no one expected. A lone figure approached him. Some say he pretended to surrender. Some say he begged for mercy. Some say he crawled. But history agrees on one thing. Murad was stabbed. The Sultan died not on a throne, but in the dust. Not by an army, but by a man. And yet his death did not stop the empire, because Murad had already turned leadership into a system. His son took power instantly. The army did not panic. The state did not collapse. The machine continued. That is the real story of Murad's middle age. Not glory, not conquest, but transformation. He did not just rule an empire. He'd redesigned power itself. And today, we still live inside the world he helped create. Modern armies, modern states, modern bureaucracy. All of it traces back to rulers like Murad, men who believed stability was worth any cost. So here's the question. Was Murad a protector of order or a destroyer of freedom? Was he building civilization or a cage? History does not answer. It asks, and now I ask you, if you were in Murad's place, would you choose mercy or control? Comment below what you think.